What's going on today, YouTube? Rob here. In today's video, I'm coming at you with another structure deck profile. This time I decided to take the Cyberse Link Structure and basically make a budget copy for you. I really like this deck, and it's very anime inspired. Even though it is an older deck, it is still fun to play, and this is the deck list that I came up with. Before we get started, I just want to say, if you're new to the channel, consider leaving a like, consider commenting on what you want to see, and what else you might want to change from this deck profile, and consider subscribing for more fun Yu-Gi-Oh content. And without wasting any more of your time, let's get into it. Alright guys, let's get into this Cyberse Link Structure deck profile. Starting things off, we have triple copies of Boot Staggered. So when a Cyberse monster is normal summoned to your field, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can only use this effect of Boot Staggered once per turn. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can special summon one Stag token, Cyberse Earth, level 1, attack and defense 0. Next up, we have triple copies of Backup Secretary. So if you control a Cyberse monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Backup Secretary once per turn this way. Then for our last three of monsters, we have 3 copies of Balancer Lord. So once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life points, and during your main phase of this turn, you can normal summon one Cyberse monster in addition to your normal summon or set. You can only gain this effect once per turn, and if this card is banished, you can special summon one level 4 or lower monster from your hand. You can only use this effect of Balancer Lord once per turn. Onto our 2-ofs, starting things off with Dual Assembworm. So if this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can banish 2 other Cyberse monsters from your hand and or face up from your field and special summon this card, but its attack becomes halved. You can only use this effect of Dual Assembworm once per turn, and once per turn you can banish 1 card from your hand and banish 1 monster on the field with less attack or equal to this card's. And the great thing about that is it doesn't target. Next up, we have 2 copies of Rom Claudia. So when this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 Cyberse monster in your graveyard except Rom Claudia and add it to your hand. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Cyberse monster from your deck except Rom Claudia. So you basically have access to everything in your deck, aside from the Assembworm and maybe a few other cards. Next up though, we have Client. So while this normal summoned or set card is face up on the field, all Cyberse monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense during your turn only. And oh geez, sorry about that. If this card on the field would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy 1 Cyberse monster in your hand or face up on your field instead. And then we have 2 copies of Launcher Commander. All other Cyberse monsters you control gain 300 attack and defense, and once per turn you contribute 1 Cyberse monster, then target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and destroy it. Lastly, for our last 2 of monster, we have 2 copies of Mathematician. So when this card is normal summoned, you can send 1 level 4 or lower monster from your deck to your graveyard. And when this card is destroyed by battle, it's sent to the graveyard, you can draw 1 card. Moving on to our 1-ofs, starting things off, we have Dotscaper. So if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card. If this card is banished, you can special summon this card, and you can only use 1 Dotscaper effect per turn, and only once that turn. You can only use each effect of Dotscaper once per duel. Then we have the 1 copy of Summoner Monk. So when this card is face up on the field, it cannot be tributed. If this card is normal or flip summoned, change this card to defense position, and once per turn, you can discard one spell. Man, I don't know what's going on with me. And special summon one level 4 monster from your deck, but that monster cannot attack this turn. Then we have one copy of Backlinker. So if only your opponent controls a monster in the extra monster zone, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you contribute this card, shuffle all monsters from the extra monster zones into the deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn. And lastly, for our monsters, we have one copy of Stack Reviver. If this card is used as material for a Link summon, you can target one other level 4 or lower Cyberse monster in your graveyard that was used as material for that Link summon and special summon it in defense position. You can only use this effect of Stack Reviver once per turn. Once per duel, not once per turn. Moving on to our spells, we have triple copies of Cosmic Cyclone, which lets you pay 1,000 life points and target a spell or trap on the field and banish it. And then we have 3 copies of Signet Backdoor. So this lets you target one Cyberse monster you control and banish it. And if you do, add one Cyberse monster from your deck to your hand whose attack is lower than that monster's original attack. I have no idea why I'm so tired today. During your next standby phase, return that monster banished by this effect to the field, and it can attack directly this turn. You can only activate one Signet Backdoor per turn. Next up, we have 2 copies of Mind Control. This lets you target one monster your opponent controls, and until the end phase, take control of that target, but it cannot declare an attack or be tributed. And then we have 2 copies of Shuffle Reborn. So if you control no monsters, you can target one monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but it has its effects negated. Also, banish it during the end phase. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one card you control, shuffle it into the deck, and then draw one card. Also, during the end phase of this turn, banish one card from your hand. You can only use this effect of Shuffle Reborn once per turn. Next up, we have 1 copy of Moon Mirror Shield. If the equipped monster battles your opponent's monster, during damage calculation, the equipped monster's attack and defense become equal to the attack and defense, whichever is higher, of the opponent's battling monster, plus 100, during damage calculation only. If this face-up card is sent from field to graveyard, pay 500 life points and place this card on either top or bottom of your deck. And then we have 1 copy of Soul Charge. This lets you target any number of monsters in your graveyard and special summon them. And if you do, you lose 1,000 life point for each monster special summoned by this effect. And you cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. You can only activate 1 Soul Charge per turn. And then we have 1 copy of DDR, Different Dimension Reincarnation, which lets you discard 1 card, then target one of your banished monsters and special summon it in attack position and equip it with this card. When this card leaves the field, destroy the equipped monster. Lastly, for our spells, we have 1 copy of Gold Sarcophagus, which lets you banish 1 card from your deck face up, and during your second standby phase after this card's activation, add that card to your hand. That's it for our spells. Moving on to traps, we have 2 copies of Dimensional Barrier, which lets you declare 1 monster type, Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Pendulum, and for the rest of this turn, neither player can special summon monsters with the declared type. Also negate the effects of all monsters with that type while they are on the field, and you can only activate 1 Dimensional Barrier per turn. And to round things off for our main deck, We have one copy of Ghost from the Past, which lets you banish 2 monsters from your graveyard, then target 1 attack position monster on the field. Change its attack to 0 until the end of this turn. Moving on to our extra deck, we have 3 copies of Tri-Gate Wizard, which requires 2+ monsters except tokens. This card gains these effects based on the number of monsters co-linked to this card. If you have 1+, if a monster co-linked with this card battles your opponent's monster, any battle damage it inflicts to your opponent is doubled. If it has 2, once per turn, you can target 1 card on the field and banish it. And if it has 3, once per turn, when a card or effect is activated, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, banish that card. Then we have 3 copies of Encode Talker, which requires 2+ Cyberse monsters. Once per turn, before damage calculation, if your monster this card points to battles an opponent's monster with a higher attack than it, you can make that monster unable to be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no battle damage from that battle. And after that damage calculation, have this card or 1 monster it points to gain attack equal to the attack of the battled opponent's monster until the end of this turn. And finally, for our extra deck, we have 3 copies of Binary Sorceress, which requires 2 monsters except for tokens. This card gains these effects based on the number of monsters co-linked to this card. So if it's 1+, when a monster is co-linked to this card battles an opponent's monster and inflicts battle damage, you gain life points equal to the amount of damage dealt. And if it has 2, once per turn, quick effect, you can target 2 face-up monsters you control, and until the end of this turn, have the attack of 1 monster, and if you do, add the lost attack to the other. And that's it for our budget Cyberse Link deck profile. Alright guys, that's it for this deck profile. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, be sure to comment on what you might want to see next, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more fun videos, and as always, I will catch you in the next one. That's game!